Bernard Malamud's novel The Natural follows the career of baseball player Roy Hobbs from his first false start to his final failure. The story is divided into two parts, the first recounting an event during Roy's 19th year, and the second picking up the story some 15 years later. Although the first part is considerably shorter than the second, it is nonetheless just as important to the novel as a whole. The Natural opens on a train moving eastward toward Chicago. We learn that Roy is traveling with his manager Sam for a tryout with Chicago Cubs. Other passengers of the train include Harriet Bird, a beautiful woman who catches Roy's eye, Max Mercy, a curious sports writer, and Walt the Warmbold, the leading hitter in the American League. When the train makes an unexpected stop, the passengers leave the train and move towards a carnival at the edge of a town. Roy comes to the attention of the warmer when he consistently wins at a baseball contest. Angered at remarks that the warmer makes toward Roy, Sam bets the warmer that Roy can strike him out. In the contest that follows, Roy does strike out the warmer. However, his last pitch hits Sam in the chest so hard that the old man dies later that night on the train. The contest also focuses Harriet Bird's attention on Roy. Sam's death leaves Roy alone in Chicago. To his surprise, he receives a telephone call from Harriet Bird inviting him to her hotel room. Roy is overjoyed, thinking that Harriet must intend a sexual tirade. Instead, when Roy arrives at her room, she shoots him in the gut with a silver bullet. The second section jumps ahead 15 years. Roy is now 34 and has been signed to play with the Knights, a losing major league team managed by Pop Fisher. Now a batter rather than a pitcher, Roy still carries his handmade bat. Wonder Boy with him, Roy arrives as a man without a past. Neither the reader nor the other characters know where he has been or what he has done for the past 15 years. Consequently, Roy's arrival piques the interest of Max Mercy, who does not remember their earlier encounter on the train. Max is determined to uncover the truth behind the mystery of Roy Hobbs. The team's best player, Bum Bailey, subjects Roy to innumerable practical jokes. However, the rivalry between Roy and Bum seems to motivate the other players. Meanwhile, Roy falls in love with Pop's niece, Memo Paris, who is also Bum Bailey's girlfriend. The rivalry between Roy and Bum escalates until Bum accidentally kills himself by smashing into the outfield wall in pursuit of a fly ball. Roy then becomes the Knights' top player. He continues to pursue Memo, who rejects him. Roy longs for Memo and begins an extended hitting streak in an attempt to win her. Finally, he decides that he needs more money in order to court her properly. Therefore, he approaches Judge Goodwill Banner, the team owner, for a raise. Rather than convincing the judge to give him a raise, Roy finds himself responsible for the uniforms that Bum Bailey destroyed. After his unsuccessful visit with the judge, Roy is accosted by Max Mercy. Roy accompanies Max to a nightclub where he meets bookie Gus Sands, who is there with Memo. After betting unsuccessfully with Gus, Roy performs a series of astounding magic tricks. For the first time since Bum's death, Memo laughs. Later, Memo and Roy go for a drive. When Roy kisses Memo, she rejects him. Pop Fisher warns Roy that Memo is no good for him. Roy enters a hitting slump. Memo continues to refuse to see Roy. Finally, during a game, a woman in a red dress stands up in the crowd. When Roy sees her, he smells a wonderful fragrance and knocks a pitch out of the ballpark. The woman is Iris Lemon, and she and Roy meet after the game. They walk along the lake shore and eventually make love. But when Iris tells Roy that she is a grandmother, Roy rejects her and returns to his longing for Memo. Without the knowledge of Roy, Memo and Gus Sands plot to destroy Roy. Memo agrees to date Roy but refuses his request for sex. Somehow, Roy's sexual hunger is transformed into physical hunger. Memo urges Roy to eat and he gorges himself. When he returns to Memo's room and drops his pants in preparation for sex, he has a sharp pain in his stomach and he passes out. Roy's gluttony nearly costs him his life. Now, in the hospital, Roy is approached first by Memo and then by the judge, who want him to throw the pen and game. At first, Roy refuses. When the judge suggests that Roy will lose Memo to someone richer, Roy agrees to throw the game for money. Memo is thrilled. When he is once again alone in his room, Roy reads a letter from Iris in which she explains her life. However, when she once again talks about herself as a grandmother, Roy crumbles up the letter and throws it away. At the pen and game, Roy begins to keep his bargain and strikes out. Otto Sip, a dwarf, taunts Roy, and Roy starts aiming foul hits at him. Just as he hits another foul ball, Iris Lemon stands in the crowd. The ball hits her square in the face and she collapses. Roy rushes to her side and she begs him to win the game for her and for their son. In this way, Roy learns that Iris is pregnant with their child. Roy resolves to win the game and has renewed hope for his future. However, on his next hit, he not only fouls the ball, he also breaks his bat Wonder Boy. In spite of his renewed effort, Roy again strikes out using another bat and thus the Knights lose the game. Later that night, Roy goes to the judge's office where he finds the judge, Memo, and Gus. Roy throws the money at the judge and knocks out Gus. Memo goes after him with a gun in a scene reminiscent of the earlier Harriet Bird incident. Memo screams at him. Roy takes away the gun and leaves the office filled with self loathing. When Roy hits the street, he finds that Max Mercy has published an article uncovering both his past and his sellout of the Knights. In the closing lines of the novel, Roy weeps for his own failures.